The United States Institute of Peace is a nonpartisan, independent institute founded by Congress dedicated to resolving violent conflict around the world. 10 years ago, their director, at that time a decorated military officer, was our keynote speaker for all the clubs in a region of Maryland. We learned over the course of that evening that our vision of service around the world, although our resources are vastly different and the way we go about it is vastly different, we have very much in common. Today, as we touch base with the USIP, it is our honor to have their Director of West Africa Operations, Oge Onyebangu, with us. Prior to her service with the USIP, she worked for the National Endowment of Democracy, an organization which I'm familiar with from Hong Kong. She's also consulted with the World Bank, Freedom House, and the Carter Center. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Oklahoma and a master's degree from Brandeis University. So we're very thankful to have the USIP with us today, and the show is yours, Oge.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. My father was also a member of the Rotary Club in Nigeria, and I know about the long-standing friendships and relationships that he built through his membership in the Rotary Club. So the picture in front of you is a picture of our main campus. It's on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. And whenever you're in the D.C. area, we'll be delighted to show you around the building. And I'm sure my colleague Allison, who is on this call, will be able to take you around the building and tell you about the amazing work that happens in there. As was mentioned, USIP is this country's national nonpartisan independent institute. It was founded by Congress and dedicated to a proposition that a world without violent conflict is possible, is practical, and essential for US and global security. The institute was created in 1984, and the creation of this institute was as a result of 2 decades of work that happened both inside and outside of Congress to establish a national institution focused on peace. Ultimately, the legislation to create USIP was signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1984. Around that same time as well, there was other legislation that was signed for other institutions like the National Endowment for Democracy that was mentioned earlier, the National Democratic Institute, and the International Republican Institute. All of this around that time basically embodied America's commitment to peace and supporting democracy around the world. So what happens in this big, beautiful building in Washington, D.C.? So just a few things of what we do over there. So we serve as a nonpartisan government partner and a trusted intermediary among foreign governments and civil society and US government officials. We also work in conflict zones at the community level and at the national level and also at the regional level. So a lot of our work requires traveling out to the different conflict zones and working with local community partners in those regions to be able to work together to develop responses to different conflicts. We also partner with stakeholders around the world to do research and support research as well, and advance strategies and new thinking around how to promote peace and resolve violent conflicts. There's a lot of research on our website as well, and I would encourage you all to also visit the USIP website to read through some of the research materials that we have there. We pride ourselves on a lot of the partnerships that we have with universities, not only in the US, but universities in the different regions where we work, and the materials that are produced, making sure that as we think about relationships with other countries, as we think about how we inform policy, that the policy is informed by the voices of those that are directly affected by the different conflicts. So that's a little bit about USIP, but I want to go into the presentation now on building peace in Nigeria and why it's important for the US. But before I do that, I just want to give us a little bit of context on where Nigeria is located. So Nigeria is in West Africa, And in West Africa, there are 15 countries that make up the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. So five countries in the ECOWAS region are Anglophone, meaning they were colonized by the British, except for Liberia, that was settled by freed American slaves. And 8 of the countries are Francophone, so they were colonized by the French. And 2 countries, Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, were colonized by the Portuguese, so they're Lusophone countries. So basically you have a region of 15 countries where English, French, and Portuguese is spoken. So very diverse, culturally diverse, but a very interesting and intriguing region of the continent. Population-wise, as of 2015, West Africa had a population size of about 349 million people, give or take. But of that 349 million people, Nigeria over here has about 200 million people. So basically the population in Nigeria is more than half of the entire population of West Africa. So it's important to know that whatever happens in Nigeria impacts the entire region and literally the entire continent, because Nigeria is the most populous country on the continent of Africa. So some more context on Nigeria. As I mentioned, approximately 200 million people in population size. It's the biggest economy on the continent, the most populous country on the continent, and it also represents one of the United States' most important relationships in Africa. It's a strategic political partner, strategic economic partner, and strategic security partner. There's so many similarities between Nigeria and the US, even from the way the government is structured. In Nigeria, there's also a Congress, which is called the National Assembly, that is made up of both an upper and lower house, just like we have in the US as well. And it's also it's a federation with 36 different states across the country. Apart from these similarities in government, there are also so many similarities in the personalities as well, between Nigerians and Americans. And that we see a lot of cultural exchanges between the US and Nigeria. USIP has been engaging in Nigeria for more than a decade, but beginning in 2015, we took a step back to try to think through our strategy of creating a country program. So the map in front of you basically outlines the different states where USIP works. In Nigeria, typically sometimes when people sort of generalize the breakout of the country, they typically say, you know, it's evenly split between Christians and Muslims, but there's so much more to that, because in between there are other religious practices as well. There are also 6 geopolitical zones of the country, and I will talk more about those different geopolitical zones when I go over to the different slides. So since there's all this wonderful stuff going on for Nigeria, all this, you know, amazing country, large population, largest economy, there's just so much going on in the country. So why are we trying to build peace in Nigeria? And I think it's really important for us to understand the security threats in the country and how those threats not only impact the country, but impact the broader region and also impact impacts global security as well. So this map over here from one of our organized, a think tank in Washington, D.C. called the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. We use a lot of their resources and we really work together in the work that we do. And I think this map is a clear representation of the diverse security threats that we see in Nigeria. Some of them, some of these threats, some of you in the audience might be familiar with when we talk about Boko Haram or ISIS West Africa, Sure, some of you may have heard of some of those threats. I'm sure some of you may have also heard about conflicts between farming communities and herders. So there is a mix of all of these threats that are going on across different parts of Nigeria. As I mentioned, the 6 geopolitical zones in the northeastern part of the country here. This is where we have a high concentration of militant Islamist groups. So your Boko Haram and your ISIS West Africa groups are here. We have in the middle belt, which is, sort of that invincible line where the predominantly Muslim north touches the predominantly Christian south. We have a lot of farmer-herder conflicts between farming communities that are predominantly Christian and herder communities that are predominantly Muslim. So there are a lot of clashes in the middle belt of the country. We also see criminality in different parts of the country that have seeped in as well, and then piracy in the Gulf of Guinea around here. So Nigeria is a major oil producer, and at a time it was actually one of the US, and it still is a partner when it comes to oil, crude oil. So there is a lot of activity. We see a lot of piracy here across the Gulf of Guinea. So it seems there are a lot of threats, security threats across Nigeria, and a lot of them are overlapping. So I just want to point out that this map only shows the locations of where these threats are. It doesn't show the intensity of the threats, even though some colors might seem darker than the other. This is just a map to illustrate where the different threats are. And if you compare this with the previous map that I showed you of where USIP is located, you will see that a lot of our work in Nigeria is actually in these regions that are experiencing a lot of these conflicts. So it's really important for us to understand the diversity of these threats to be able to develop solutions to them. So as we think about the security threats that are ongoing in Nigeria, ironically, tomorrow is actually Nigeria's Independence Day after gaining independence from the British in 1960. So Nigeria is going to be 61 years old. So it's a relatively young country. And in the midst of all these security threats, the country has come a long way. In that time of its history, between 1960 to 1999, you had series of military coups, interrupted civilian administrations. You also had a major civil war that was fought as well during that time. So the country has come a really, really long way, where it just transitioned from a military administration in 1999 to a civilian government. So it's a very short time of practicing democracy. So in that time of, increased awareness of how democratic systems should operate, you also have a growing young population. Population in Nigeria is about, the youth population in Nigeria, we're looking at about 70% of the population below the age of 30. So that's a huge youth population. And coupled with a weakening economy and a growing divide between government and citizens, you begin to see a lot of frustration that really came to a headway in October of last year. Those of you who are active on social media, or if you on the news as well, there was a hashtag that was called End SARS. And the hashtag End SARS was really young people standing up against police brutality. And they were really protesting an elite anti-robbery squad that was set up by the government several years ago. But this squad had committed so many atrocities and was particularly targeting a lot of young people, a lot of young entrepreneurs who were really trying to make a way for themselves. So I think it came to a headway last year where we saw the growing disconnect between government and citizens really fueled the EndSARS protest. And it became more than a call for security reform. It actually turned into more of a call of real frustrations about weak governance across the country. So because I mentioned the farmer herder crisis that we've seen in the Middle Belt region of the country, I also want to say a little bit about climate change adaptation and conflict in Nigeria, because really this is a global discussion and a global issue that everyone is really discussing at this time. And when it comes to the issues of climate in Nigeria, especially in the northern part of the country, we see the impacts, well, across the entire country, really, at this point. We see the impacts and conflict risk of climate change as it cuts across the different populations, the different sectors and markets in the country. However, there have been poor adaptive responses to them. And it's not only Nigeria that is in this boat. It's, again, as I said, the impacts and the effects of climate change is something that we're all battling across the world today. Northern Nigeria, for one, presents a really good example of where environmental changes over time are stoking deadly conflict. What we see in Northern Nigeria is the Sahara encroaching into the land over there, and it's resulting in desertification. So because of that, you have a lot of herders moving their cattle down south, and it's creating a lot of clashes between farmers and herders. There have been a lot of attempts to try to understand how herding and farming communities can coexist. And I know that there have been a lot of lessons and a lot of exchanges between Nigerian universities and the university in Florida, trying to think about what type of agricultural practices could people put in place to ensure that we're able to tackle these types of clashes that happen between farmers and herders. Unfortunately, when you have these types of clashes occur, you also have politicians and others who take advantage of the conflicts and use them for their own purposes. So thereby also stoking other conflicts around identity, around religion, around social class. So I just wanted to point that out as well, that as we think about the different security threats, and I hope you're seeing some of the threads of why some of these things in Nigeria, some of these security threats in Nigeria should be of importance to the entire world and importance to us here in the US as well. So the conflicts in Nigeria are really connected to the rest of the continent. And I think we really saw it clearly with the EndSARS protest. The EndSARS campaign last year, and also with the farmer-herder conflicts as well, since a lot of the cattle that are coming into the country are also coming in from other parts of West Africa. So we can't look at the security and governance challenges in Nigeria alone. We can't look at them in isolation of the entire continent and in isolation of the global discussion. We saw with the EndSARS protest, as I mentioned, you have 70% of young people in Nigeria below the age of 30. So their sentiments and their concerns really reflect a rising set of demands among young people across the continent of Africa and really across the world today, where we see several forms of frustration coming up, even in the US as well. So it really reflects that rising the rising demand among the young population, and really how Nigeria responds to some of these calls that we're seeing and these increasing frustrations from young people, how Nigeria responds, how the world responds to other forms of frustrations we see from young people will really determine how far we can go in building peace. So the population of Nigeria will surpass the population, or at least is estimated to surpass the population of the United States by 2050. 2050. Nigeria continues to be the undisputed regional hegemon in West Africa, in Africa, really. And because of its size, its military strength, it really has the responsibility to lead. And its partners, including the US, the UK, and others, these are opportunities to help to engage to ensure that it leads properly. I want to focus on the work that we do at USIP now to show you that the US government is also engaging in the process and seeing Nigeria as a partner. So USIP's work in Nigeria is really focused on fostering inclusive, accountable, and effective institutions, ensuring that the country and the people of the country are able to build the systems and address the challenges that matter to them the most, and ensure that there is ownership by Nigerians of the process, and that it is not a process that is imposed from the outside, but a process that is grown from within. So the three areas of our work, we work with security institutions, including the local police, and include most especially the local police. There are a lot of concerns and discussions around security sector reform. Nigeria, unlike other countries that Nigeria, the police is centered in the central capital, and it's very difficult to have an effective policing system operating from just the national when you have 36 states. Unlike the US, where you have state police, in Nigeria, you have just one police outfit that operates from the national. And that over time, as the population has grown, it's just not effective. So that has led to a lot of miscommunication and ongoing conversations around security reform. So what USIP is doing in that space is really working with local actors to think through how community members can be involved in the policing process in Nigeria. The next part is on our work on conflict resolution and how we work with different institutions. We work with the churches in Nigeria. We work with the interfaith mediation councils in Nigeria. One of the, conflict resolution, something that we've done in Nigeria in the Middle Belt, an example of our work that continues to resonate is a peace that was brokered several years ago in the Middle Belt between Muslim and Christian communities that were fighting, and they were able to sign a peace pact that has remained in effect for so many years. And then we also do a lot of work with government institutions, as I mentioned. So we do a lot of our work with the state governors at the state level. And this is where there are those opportunities for engagement, because at the state level, just like in the US, where we have the National Governors Association, in Nigeria, they have the Nigerian Governors Forum. And this is an opportunity for states across to actually think about ways to engage and work with each other. And this is just a brief of some of our areas of programming in Nigeria, a couple of things that we do. I can talk more about it when we go into the Q&A if there's specific questions about our work. And as I mentioned, I try to always end these presentations on Nigeria on an optimistic note. So this is from the front page from the Newsweek from last year, and basically tagging Nigeria as the world's next superpower, and basically saying that Nigeria will be Africa's first true global power sooner than we think. So it's really important for us to engage and think about constructive ways to work with Nigerians. I always tell people that Nigeria's greatest export is not its oil, its greatest export is its people. And you're looking at a country where 1 in 7 Black people on the face of this planet, 1 in every 7 Black people on the face of this planet is Nigerian or of Nigerian descent. So it is still a country of the future and important for us to engage and to build peace in the country. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Oge. I think we all learned a lot today about Nigeria and about America's interest in keeping security in West Africa and the role Nigeria is going to play in the future. we have time for a couple of questions. And our former president, Dick Harris, is closest to me, so I'll give the mic to him first.
I have a friend who is a few years younger than I, but was involved in the Civil War in Nigeria as a youth, and actually fled the United States because they had put a price on his head, the opposing side. Now he's Christian and became very successful in the US. Later in life became an ordained Christian minister and went back as an evangelist to feed war widows to make amends for his part in that war. But 2 years ago, he found out the National Police came in. He was holding a revival, feeding war widows and others, and found out that the police again said that he again has a group opposing Christian meetings that had put a price on his head. Is this an age-old problem that's going to go on forever?
Conflict in Nigeria is really complex. And as I mentioned in the presentation, we have seen instances where several individuals, especially politicians, have used identity and religion, have manipulated identity and religion for their own cause. So increasingly, we see these types of conflicts, and it paints a picture that there is a conflict going on between Christians and Muslims. Now, I don't want to be dismissive to say, religion has nothing to do with it. But I think increasingly what we see is a complexity of the conflict, and we have to take more time to really understand how identity is being used as a tool. Also understanding that from the Civil War, there is still that process of reconciliation that needs to take place. I often tell people that a lot of the conflicts that we see today a lot of the conflicts and grievances that we see from the southeastern part of the country is often because there wasn't any true reconciliation. So the process of reconciliation needs to be revisited. And really, in trying to address conflict in Nigeria, religious actors are some of our most active partners in Nigeria, and we engage with them when we try to understand these issues. So I think just a point to leave you with, sir, is the conflicts in Nigeria are complex and often manipulated by those who want to use them for their own gain.
Is there a way that we could email you further questions? Okay, would that be acceptable? I have your email address.
Yes, I will be happy. I will be delighted to take additional questions.
Okay, thank you, and thank Allison and the USIP for your time today. We very much appreciate it. Thank you.